So that's one of the things that we want to be able to talk about. So I was going to ask you, Shane. So you're the fixture expert, right? So, but you also have sold probably more advanced controlled fixture projects than anybody I know. How is it that you've shifted the way that you're approaching a customer from before advanced controls, right? So back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, you know, when I started and I was retrofitting with T8 lamps and electronic ballast and reflectors and all those different types of things, maybe I'd throw a wall sensor on or something like that,
sure,
to now, where you have LED changing every day with new lumen per watt and new optics,
sure,
and new fixture designs, etc., and advanced controls. How do they fit together, and how does the typical sales guy that is us make that shift like we have and take these new types of projects to their customers without the fear of, am I getting in too deep? Am I going, is this uncharted territory? Am I going to sell something that ends up making me look
sure,
bad? You know, that kind of
sure.
stuff.
So, you know, I think it all begins with education. The education of where we're at today with advanced controls. First, the salesperson has to be educated. They have to go through a formal training. They have to understand it. They have to understand what they're getting into. They have to understand the infrastructure, and they have to understand the components of the system. Once they have a good understanding of how that system works, which isn't very complicated, there's not a lot of components, there's not a lot of parts. If you work with the right team, you could put a project together by yourself within probably a few months of working with someone on several projects with you. But, you know, it starts with the education, and I think that's the most important thing. And then once the salesperson is educated and they thoroughly understand the process, they need to take that teaching moment to the customer. And they got to open up to the customer. You know, the customer might be that guy looking for the least expensive project, or it might be that customer who's looking for the fastest payback, or it could be this other customer who I just saw recently who has said, man, I bought fixtures from this manufacturer for the last 40 years in my facility, and as long as it's their fixtures, I know it's right. And it's affirming the customer's beliefs, because a lot of those values, hey, I understand you have budgetary constraints, or, you know, I understand, you know, you're really comfortable with this particular fixture manufacturer, but let me talk to you about advanced controls and what it means today. And then after you get that basic product knowledge presented and the options presented to the customer, because there's lots of options, the next thing is to talk about legislation, to talk about energy code, and to ask the customer what their goals are and how are they going to achieve energy code. Once that's done, at that point the customers usually coming to me and saying, man, I really didn't think about my responsibility in this building being not only to, you know, I have these goals on energy savings and cost reductions and high light levels so we could do what we need to do as a business with the right amount of light to see and produce products, but now I got to manage energy code, and how do I tie all this together? And the answer is advanced controls. You know, the answer is advanced controls where you're going to recognize some additional savings. So even though the project cost goes up, you know, you have the ability to give the customer the perfect amount of light. You know, one project sticks out to me where we were working in an aerospace environment. And if we designed the project with fixture A, they had 30% more light than they needed. And if we designed the product with fixture B, they had 10% less light than they needed. So instantly, everybody had the decision. Let's overlight the space. Let's give them more light than they need. And over the period and the life cycle of that product, the light levels would gradually reduce. And this customer, I said to him, I said, you know, I understand why you're doing what you're doing, and I understand the importance of achieving light levels. But look at the additional energy costs you're spending.
For 10%.
Yeah. So what we were able
traditionally imperceptible shift in energy, in light levels. Right?
Yeah. So what we were able to do is implement an advanced control system to where on day one that advanced control those fixtures operated about 70% output. And as time went by and hours went by, the energy consumed by those fixtures gradually increased to the point in which they knew that they had that reliable light level for the entire life cycle of the product. And in this process, it paid for the backbone of the advanced controls. So now we're able to gather some additional savings by, in the office areas, being able to top trim some of the troffers. And in the engineering bay, those guys like working almost in the dark. So they were able to reduce their lights down to about 10 to 15% total output, because when using AutoCAD, it was the most comfortable for their eyes. And what they found is additional energy savings that from the advanced controls. They found that they were able to meet key objectives and ensure the quality assurance within their production space. But they also found that their employees appreciated it. Their employees liked the fact that they were able to tailor their own experience and to be able to maximize their efficiency at work. I had one lady say to me, she said, every time they do a relighting here, as soon as they leave, I get on top of my desk and I take 2 lamps out of the troffer above me. And I look and there's a 4-lamp T8. But everybody else in her department, it was an accounting department that did a lot with paper mail, they really needed a high level of light. So she was joking that she was gonna have to wear sunglasses to work. So what we were able to do is take that fixture above her desk, reduce it so she had a comfortable workspace because we had granular control, and be able to leave the rest of the department at the desired light levels of everyone else. So advanced controls is the way to go.
Worker morale. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's been my experience that the typical employee or the user in the space from lighting projects, and I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, because if you've sold a project, you've experienced this, is that we're the company who oftentimes isn't looked at as the good guy in this scenario, right? The company's trying to save money. And they're trying to take lights away from me. They're trying to take choice away from me. I had a lot of light, had 4 bulbs in there, and now I got 2, and there you go, stealing all my light, you know, and you don't care about me. And from my experience, so I've walked into buildings that have been installed with LED. Traditional LED retrofits are, if you're going 1-for-1 in a troffer scenario, in an office with, you know, whatever lighting that they have, if you're going from fluorescent to LED, odds are, and this has been my experience almost 99% of the time, you are increasing light levels significantly. Now, it may have been too bright before, because what we're dealing with today is a complete shift in the workspace. So whereas back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, what we've been, you know, the typical usage was writing, reading, not high definition style, you know, blueprints, right? That you needed a lot of light, 50, 100-foot candles, right? Now everything's done on a self-illuminated workspace or working plane, which is a computer screen. So more and more we're seeing engineering departments, we're seeing sales departments, call centers, all dropping their light levels from what used to be 50-foot candles to 35-foot candles to 20-foot candles. It keeps dropping. And then they're saying, you know, really, all I need is a little task light to light my little pad over here. But the dimmer it is, the more comfortable I am. So, and to be able to allow someone the ability to control their space. Now they feel like the company actually is looking out for them. I mean, the shift, I've had the same experience. You walk in and the person says, man, it is so bright in here. Can you dim these? And I'm literally the commissioner. They didn't know. I'm working on your light. Can you dim them? I'm like, it happens every time. What are the odds? They don't know that I can dim them. And I say, yes, I can dim them. You can? Yeah. So, well, dim it, you know, and I'll literally get on and dim it right there. Do you like that? Do you like that? Do you like that? Oh, that's perfect. And I mean, the look on that person's face, the happiness. Right. I have just made their year. And they'll even tell me stuff like that. Silliest thing. But it went from the person who was going to lodge a complaint for it being too bright to now a super happy employee. And that's a really, really big deal.
Right. And just think about that. You have happy employees, and at the same time, the company has substantial cost savings. They have cost savings by energy savings.
More than they would have if they didn't do it.
More,
A
exactly.
lot more.
And then in addition to that, the life cycle of that product's going to be longer.
Right. We'll talk a little bit about that. What do advanced controls do to LED fixtures?
Sure. So I had some great experiences working with LED. And what I found is many times the drivers and fixture applications are basically pushing a fixture at 100% of its capability. So when it pushes at 100%, if you were to take that fixture apart and you put your hand on the fixture, you're going to find that many times the temperature of that driver is greater than the room temperature of the environment. However, when you reduce those light levels, you're not only dimming the fixture, but you're utilizing less energy, and the amount of energy consumed is linear with the amount of heat produced, right?
Watts equal heat.
Exactly. So you're taking heat out of that fixture and you're prolonging its life. One of the other things I found is in an experiment, I took 2 office spaces. And in the one office space, I installed the fixtures exactly how they came. The spacing was the same, 2x4 LED volumetrics and an 8x8 grid. In the other office space, which was perfectly identical, I top trimmed everything by 10%. There was no noticeable difference in light levels.
Like a half a foot candle or something, right?
It just wasn't noticeable. And at the same time, that company was saving additional
10%.
energy.
Could be thousands of dollars.
And if you go back to the old way of looking at this with return on investment, it would increase. It would really pay heavy to the ROI on the project. You know, outside of office space, let's talk about healthcare. Let's talk about nursing homes. You know, I recently had an experience with a family member in a nursing home, and they had a lighting upgrade. And I was pretty impressed. The hallways were super bright white, and it was very easy for the nurses to keep those hallways sanitary and clean. And when you went into the patient room, the lights were bright white as well. But you know, the patient didn't have that same experience as the people cleaning the hallways in the nursing home. They felt different. You know, in that nursing home, they wanted to be comfortable. They wanted to feel like they were at home. With the new technologies available, we could make that happen. You know, we could install a color tuning fixture. We could actually tune the white to where the advanced controls could keep the light at a really warm 2,700 to 3,000 Kelvin when that patient's in their room watching television. You know, trying to have the most comfortable experience like their home. When nurses and doctors come in, or when they kind of want that person to get up and going a little bit, they can increase that color temperature to almost a 4,000 natural white, which almost energizes them. It gets them up and going in the daytime. You know, it's not that relaxed, warm color that you'd experience at night. And then on the unfortunate side of things, when maybe a doctor needs to come in and do some sort of a test or give a shot or a needle, they're able to even turn that color temperature up to 5,000 Kelvin, which ensures that they have accuracy and they can see in what they're doing. You know, doctors aren't used to working in 2,700 Kelvin. You know, they're used to the bright lights of a hospital. And we have all that capability with the simplicity of advanced controls and a wall switch.
That's a great point. I had the same experience when we had our son. We were in a delivery room and it was really dim, and they had, it wasn't incandescent, it was just like warm white T12s or something in the bed light, right, that was lighting the room. It was really dark. The lights were super, super warm, and they could not find my wife's vein, and it was becoming the biggest pain in the butt. And nobody could see anything, you know, because the room was kind of set up more as a delivery room for keeping the patient comfortable, but they didn't have the capability of kicking everything into high gear for right now, just for this minute, right? So what I wanted to talk about, and this brings us, I think, a good transition to, okay, so we put in lights, we put in advanced controls, we gave you something really neat. We gave you color tuning, we gave you advanced controls, we gave you a wireless network that you can expand on and put Internet of Things. But the big question is, what happens to this thing? Is my facilities manager actually going to be able to manage this system? Or does there need to be somebody that's an expert in this system that at a totally reasonable cost. You know, we can't be talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to maintain the system. It has to fit in the ROI model of the traditional energy savings project.